everybody, and welcome to a new video, and I'm going to get right to the point of the topic. Today I want to talk about the best and worst games I've played in the year 2020. This doesn't apply to just 2020 games, this applies to anything I've played over the past year. It could be games in 2015, it could be games this year. It's just games that, one, I'd recommend, and games that, two, I wouldn't recommend. So, let's start with our first best game of 2020. The first best game is gonna have to be Batman Arkham Knight. I recently picked this up out of the dust shelf and I realized how fun I had the last time, and I went to play it again, and it's safe to say that it's one of my favorite single players to date. I just love everything about it. The combat feels fluid, the characters feel like they have a lot of personality, have a lot to say, and the best part about the story is how alive Gotham feels. When you glide around the city or drive in the Batmobile and just look at the environment, look at Gotham, it feels like an actual city being run down by thugs and rioters. You see AI actively rioting, AI driving a car, shooting guns in the air, AI just beating up the good guys of the city. It feels like it's in flames actively, and you're gliding around trying to stop it as much as you can, and that's what I love. It feels like a lot of passion was put into the game. I also love that there are some things in the game that clearly was put in it to please the audience, like the infamous or famous Iceberg Lounge from Arkham City. It was basically a horde mode where you would take your character and fight as much as you can, but it got progressively harder, and it was brought back in Arkham Knight because of a forum post. Someone said it would have been really cool if the Iceberg Lounge was put back into Arkham Knight, and it was there. Rocksteady did it, and I honestly think Rocksteady is one of the most underrated companies out there, and I really hope they get more recognition with the Suicide Squad game they're releasing. So if you haven't played Batman Arkham Knight, I highly suggest you do. It's really cheap right now. It's, I think, at most $20 in the Xbox store. So make sure you pick that up. It's really great. Next best game I love to play is, hear this, the base Doom Eternal, but not the DLC Doom Eternal. Now, base Doom Eternal feels amazing. It is amazing. I mean, it's fucking Doom. You run around, you kill everything you see in the most badass way possible. There's not much to say about Doom. It's been a franchise for, 2 decades now, and it's still going strong. But all seriousness, I love the campaign. It's fast, it's fucking chaotic, it's just awesome. You get to run around with a shotgun blowing up demons by one. You get to have like this awesome demon sword and slash literally everything in your path, and it's just what I'd expect from a modern Doom. Seriously, just you, a shotgun, and a bunch of demons, and you run around killing everything in your sight. But the DLC Doom Eternal, I recently played it, and I didn't like it because it felt like ID was really banking on the difficulty of the game and not why I originally got into the franchise. I got into the franchise because it was chaotic, but because it was just fucking blindless fun, brainless entertainment. That's what Doom looked like to me. But Doom Eternal kind of just said, okay, so you've got all these upgrades, you've got all these weapons, let's amp the difficulty by like 1,000,000. And that's what the DLC felt like. There have been memes going around saying the base game is just a tutorial for the DLC, and honestly, I don't like that. I don't like that paid content feels harder than what you've already paid for. It just feels like now I can't do this on a difficulty that I want to do it on. I feels like I have to handicap my own gaming experience because it's quote unquote too hard. But in reality, it's not too hard. What it is just the enemies juiced up to the point where you have to throw literally every type of weapon at them just to kill some of them in an area. all while you're closed around spamming the dash and jump button trying to save your dear life. And apparently there's this new enemy called the Spirits who like to buff the demons, the already juiced up demons, and you have to kill said juiced up plus spirit enhanced demon and then kill the spirit. And the only way to kill the spirit is by using the worst attachment in the game, which is the little laser beam on the plasma rifle. Which, it's not the fact you have to kill something with a specific weapon that bothers me. It's the fact that they knew that they were going to juice up the enemies to compensate the fact that the DLC is just 3 missions for $20. But then they added an enemy that makes them even stronger. Why didn't they just make it feel like it was relatively easy to play until those spirits came along? So then it was like a huge brick wall, and then you're gonna have to bash through. I just don't like how this was already hard from the very beginning, and then decided to make an enemy that made the game even harder. All because, you're not the same person you were because you actually have upgrades this time. Feels like I'm being punished to progress. I'm getting too into it on the DLC. I'd highly recommend Doom Eternal, but if you're really looking for some type of just balls-crushingly difficult content, then get the DLC as well. Otherwise, just stick to the base game. It already has enough content to give you good pleasure. The next game I would like to recommend is Mortal Kombat X. This is another game I've pulled out of the dust shelf, and honestly, if you haven't played Mortal Kombat X, play it. Seriously. It's free on the Game Pass. It's very cheap, and I find that way more enjoyable than Mortal Kombat 11. Its combat feels like I can actually pull off real combos, unlike Mortal Kombat 11, which was just like what, jab, down, jab, and then throw, and rinse the cycle until the opponent gets frustrated and rage quits. There's such a lame way to not only play, but to win too. I just don't get how people could win like that. But with Mortal Kombat X, I feel like I can pull off actual combos, and cool looking ones too. It had the best roster. It had such a good roster of fighters. You've got your OG Mortal Kombat characters. You've got fucking Triborg, which is basically Cyrax, Sector, and Smoke all in one character. You had freaking Jason Voorhees. You had Mike. You had Leatherface. You had Alien. You had all the cool horror movie DLC characters, along with characters like Bo Raicho. I know that's a very a character lacking in popularity, but I just like how he's fat, drunk, and likes to shit on people. Not literally, by the way. Well, yeah, literally. In the form of farts, he literally shits on people. And it's just such a good game. I'm surprised Mortal Kombat X didn't win, or wasn't even a contender for Game of the Year. There's really minimal flaws with the game. Maybe besides some things here and there, maybe some bugs with the game, but other than that, it's a very solid fighting game. And it really made me come back to it, especially after Mortal Kombat 11, because I realized, the difference in quality between the two games. Mortal Kombat 11 looks better, but I really enjoyed the gameplay of Mortal Kombat X, and I could get past the graphics. So, if you're looking for a fighting game, I'd highly suggest Mortal Kombat X, if you could ever pick it up. And that's going to be my top 3 best games of 2020. And then my top 3 worst games of 2020. Number 3 is going to have to be Fighters. Now, I used to like Dragon Ball Fighters, but I got back to it recently because of this new season with these new fighters, and I realized what was wrong with the game. What was wrong with the game is 2 things. One feels personal, the other one feels like it just is not it's not ethical for fighting games. The first personal thing is how you can be locked up in combos and just be pressured to the point where it feels like you have to lose. Look up gameplay, montages of people getting infinitely comboed without any way to escape it. The thing in fighters is if you get stuck in a combo, like especially in the air, there's no way to mechanically escape from it unless the guy doing the combo messes it up and doesn't keep you in there. If you have an ability to backflip, then you can block out of the combo, or out of the follow-up, actually, I should say that. But if it's mid-combo, if he's still doing it, you can't do anything about it. You literally have to take all the damage. Whereas in Mortal Kombat X, like I said, if you were in mid-combo, you actually had a mechanic to escape the combo, and it was the combo breaker. This was the same thing in Mortal Kombat 9 too. It also had the exact same thing. It had a combo breaker. You were actually able to escape those fucking infinite fucking embarrassment ass combos. But in fighters, you can't do that. You actually have to take the combo from 0% to 100% every single time. Which is why there's even 3 characters. Could you imagine if you were able to combo break even though it's like a 3 versus 3 fighter game? I don't know. But to me, that's just not good. It feels like I can't make any mistakes. If I do, then I'll just lose. And it feels like I'm not even in control, which is one thing I always want in a video game. Even if it's multiplayer, I want to have some semblance of control. I want to feel like I actually am doing something. I don't want to feel like I just can't do anything. So why even pick up the controller? Why even turn on the game? And another thing I didn't feel was right was that large period of time where the DLC characters were basically optimal and the base characters weren't. It made the game feel pseudo pay to win, as if you needed the DLC characters to consistently win in, let's say, competitive matches, and using the base characters weren't going to give you enough wins. It's like incentivizing you to pay money for the game, which I never liked in fighting games. If I don't mind DLC fighters at this point, I just mind it if they're so much better than base characters, to the point where if I picked up base characters, I could theoretically never win. If you were even slightly good at the game and those DLC characters were that strong, I theoretically couldn't win. So that's what I never liked in fighting games, and fighters had that, especially with all the Gokus that came out, with GT Goku and UI Goku. It seemed as if you didn't have those characters, you were basically just hurting your chances of winning, and those were paid characters, and it just felt very wrong to me, and it felt almost anti-consumer. You can't recommend someone to play a game only for them to realize that they actually have to kind of pay to win, in a way, because those characters are really good and the characters you offered aren't. So that's just something I never liked. Okay. Second worst game of 2020 I've played, and it's gonna honestly have to go to Mortal Kombat 11. Again, another fighting game. I recently picked this one up, and it apparently appears nothing has changed. Fighting still feels relatively the same. Just jab, down jab, throw. I mean, I was gonna get back into the game when Rain came out, because I do like Rain. He's a cool character with, even though it's water, cool abilities. I mean, water can be used in a cool way, like Rain does. But he didn't come out, so I decided to just play the game anyways and play Geras, a built character, I'll say. It's very heavyweight built character. But then I realized something about Mortal Kombat 11, and honestly, I just don't know if Rain is going to keep me back in, or going to take me back into the game. I've noticed that no matter what updates the game goes through, no matter how many DLC that's out, the core aspects, the core elements of the game is just too boring and just uninteresting. Look up any DLC trailer from Mortal Kombat 11, and you'll see how every transition to another scene always ends with a crushing blow, because that's the most flashy part of the game besides fatalities. But fatalities is different. That's all pure animation. Of course you can make fatalities look like the coolest shit ever, because the player doesn't have to do anything about it. All he has to do is like input it, and the animation will do the rest for the player. No, the core gameplay is too boring. Why do you think it was kicked out of EVO? Because it's just players aren't interested in watching other players watch Mortal Kombat or play Mortal Kombat 11. It's just so like when you look at Mortal Kombat 11 gameplay and compare it to Mortal Kombat X, you're gonna see the difference in how interesting each game looks. And Mortal Kombat 11 isn't interesting. Maybe it's just my opinion and my very biased and negative opinion, but like I said, there's a reason why those trailers are heavily just edited to make it look like this character. Oh my god, you could do so much with this character, and he does so much flashy moves. And it doesn't do that. I watch these trailers and it still feels like there's this odd type of, man, this game looks really boring feeling that I get from these trailers. And it does feel that way in the game too, especially online. Offline, it's just bullshit Mortal Kombat AI. The way the AI works in Mortal Kombat is the harder it is, the more the AI can read your movements before you kind of actually do them. So if you have this shit on like the hardest difficulty, yeah, good luck hitting them. And you can't like set the difficulty in the towers either. I know that was in Mortal Kombat X, but I'm not saying that's like the biggest problem here. Like I said, I'd rather recommend Mortal Kombat X than I would Mortal Kombat 11. It's just a better game when it comes to gameplay. But I will say this though, I'm not gonna share Mortal Kombat 11 this hard. It is aesthetically pleasing. I'm gonna assume that's how you say it. It is aesthetically pleasing to look at Mortal Kombat 11 until you start playing it. Now, for the worst game of 2020, and for those who know me personally are probably gonna think this is obvious, the absolute worst game I've played in 2020, and honestly the absolute worst game I've played in my entire life is League of Legends. Never has a game made me as mad or frustrated or sad as League of Legends has, and I can put that in my life. There is literally just nothing fun about League of Legends. You ever played a game so fucking bad or frustrating that you've reached a point where you felt like you weren't having any fun with the game? Like genuinely, you weren't having any kind of enjoyment or entertainment with the game? Because I felt like that when I was playing League of Legends. It feels so fucking miserable to play the game. And honestly, I want to go in why it feels miserable to play League of Legends, but that would be an entire video in itself. So I'm honestly gonna save that for a coming soon video on my distaste for League of Legends. But for now, I'll just say this. It is by far, like officially, the worst game I have ever played in 2020, and I have ever played from the history of video games. I want to add some honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is Watch Dogs Legion. Right now, I am having a ton of fun with the game. I really like the play as anyone concept. I like the story. The combat feels nice. The driving is, well, Ubisoft, so it's like Ubisoft driving. You ever played a game with cars in it that you can drive and it was under Ubisoft? You understand what I'm talking about. How it feels wonky, like, all the time. At any point. It never felt like fluid driving. It never felt smooth. It felt weird. But, I can't give my final verdict on Watch Dogs Legion yet because while I have played a good bit of the game, it's not too much to actually give a solidified opinion. Another honorable mention I'd like to make is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Again, another Ubisoft game, but Ubisoft's been kicking it this year, what can I say? And this game, as of today, just came out, and by the looks of it, or by this 1 hour of gameplay that I got on it, feels pretty good. Actually feels like a solid Assassin's Creed game. Again, it is RPG, which I don't know. I never really liked RPG games of Assassin's Creed, but this is probably the most interesting one out of the other two, in my opinion. I never really got into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I never really got into Assassin's Creed Origins either. But for right now, if I wanted to recommend a RPG Assassin's Creed, it's gonna have to be Valhalla, as of now. My opinion could change because this game just came out as of this recording, but from the looks of it, it's kind of unlikely this game is just gonna end up sucking right in the middle of it. So, anyways, those are my best and worst games of 2020. This video is kind of overdue, but hey man, things happen. You know, with the election, the hurricane, and a bunch of personal shit. I'm not a machine. I'm only human, and I can only do what I can. So, I hope you enjoyed. Please check out the games I recommended. I feel like you won't be disappointed. And I'll see you in the next one.
In the cold? Come on.
No!